Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie. And in this video, I want to look at the week starting on Monday, January the 29th, 2024. And this week runs through until Sunday, February the 4th, 2024. So let me just give you an idea about how I'm going to set up this video. So first of all, I want to look at the overall planetary picture this week, and I'm going to look at what I see as being the main events. By and large, I think there are two main events this week. Not particularly spectacular. Probably the most important one is a semi-square between Mars and Saturn. There's also a semi-square between the Sun and Neptune. Probably those two are the most important events. Well, we shouldn't forget that at the beginning of a week there is a trine between Mars and Uranus. So once I've done that, I am going to just look at a few famous people who I think might be impacted by these events. One famous person is Nigel Farage, and I haven't actually looked at his chart for some time, so that might be an opportunity to have a bit of an update on him. There are a couple of other people. Jens Stoltenberg, I think he's the Secretary General of NATO. J.K. Rowling. Putin and Imran Khan in Pakistan. It's interesting that Putin and Imran Khan are actually born very close to each other. So those are a few people I'm going to look at. So once I've done that, I'm going to turn to the I Ching. And so my I Ching reading, as always, is going to cover four broad areas. It's going to look at what the week is going to be like from a general perspective, from a perspective of money, then career and business, and finally relationships. Okay, so let's get going and look at what's going on this week. Top right, that is Nigel Farage. I am not going to give you any of my opinions on Nigel Farage, positive or negative. I just want to look at him in a sort of a fairly neutral way, see what's going on in his life. But he is someone we certainly shouldn't be writing off. Okay, so these are the start positions for the week. The week starts with the Sun at 8 Aquarius, the Moon at 16 Virgo. There we are. And it starts with a Mercury-Venus conjunction. So, over the weekend, last weekend, or rather sort of the end of last week, sort of Saturday, I think off the top of my head, I think that was Saturday the 27th. The Mercury-Mars conjunction in Capricorn was exact. But, at the beginning of this week, Monday the 29th, the 30th, Tuesday the 30th, that Mercury-Mars conjunction is still very much going to be in force. And so, as I've been saying over the last week, the Mercury-Mars conjunction is very verbal. Mercury is the communication planet. Mars is a planet of assertion and aggression. So the beginning of a week, a lot of us are going to have a lot of things to say. And we might be saying them quite angrily. And when dealing with other people, we do have to be aware of that. Once arguments start, it may be difficult to calm them down, though this Mercury-Mars conjunction is in Capricorn. So I think at the end of the day, common sense will prevail, and people aren't going to become so argumentative that they just cause complete destruction. I think people will have some sense of what is important in a material sense. Now, at the same time as this is going on, this Mercury-Mars conjunction, at the beginning of the week, we have a trine between Mars here and Uranus. So Mars and Uranus as a pair can be quite violent. Mars is about aggression. Uranus can be about explosions. So it's easy to cause an explosion. That's the negative side of Mars trine Uranus. On a positive note, we can make people sit up and listen. It's easy, Mars trine Uranus. We assert ourselves, and we cause a bit of turmoil. We can be revolutionaries in our own world. It's easy. But when you've got trines, there is a view that a trine is an easy aspect, that trines are good. I think that is a simplification. All a trine means is that the energy flows easily. Now, that's not necessarily good. So, if you are doing something dangerous, it becomes even more dangerous because that dangerous energy is flowing easily. If someone wants to cause damage, they can cause more damage than expected with Mars trine Uranus. So people's craziness is going to be amplified with that Mars trine Uranus. And so in terms of our own activities, don't put too much energy into things. So I don't know, if you're using, power tools, use less power than you think. These power tools, they're powerful by definition, and they may actually cause more damage than expected if you use them in the wrong way, and it won't take much to cause a problem there. So, that Mars trine Uranus is a bit of a two-edged sword. Then, as we move into the week, as we move to Wednesday, a couple of things happen. Firstly, the moon starts to move into Libra, and it starts to move into the Via Combusta. So, sort of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It does depend where you are to an extent, but that middle part of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the moon is in the Via Combusta. That's that point between 15 degrees Libra and 15 degrees Scorpio. Not a point, it's a part of the sky. And when the moon moves through the Via Combusta, things can just happen unexpectedly, and I think that's intensified by the fact that we've still got the lingering influence of Mars trine Uranus. Via Combusta, that means I think something like flaming road. Via is a road or a path, combusta is a burning up or something. And so we plan things, and it just doesn't work as we expect. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's bad. It's just things happen. So in the middle of a week, make sure that whatever plans you've got some flexibility. The Via Combusta isn't saying that a plan is going to fail. It's just going to say that whatever you were planning on doing, you may have to do it completely differently. So I would recommend that you make an allowance for that, and make sure that there's plenty of flexibility in the system. There's a Sun semisquare Neptune on Wednesday, right at the end of the month. Just to show you, this is a chart for the Sun semisquare Neptune. London time, it's 3:48 in the morning on Wednesday. The Sun semisquare Neptune would be on Tuesday evening in the Americas. So we can see the semi-square Neptune here. So there's the Sun at 10:45 Aquarius. There's Neptune at 25:45 Aquarius. So the Sun and Neptune are exactly 45 degrees apart. And I must stress that these 45-degree aspects really do matter. I could interpret a chart without trines and sextiles. I could not interpret a chart without semisextiles and sesquiquadrates. Sun semisquare Neptune means that the Sun is about how we are. It's about our selfhood. It's the heart of who we are. But it's semi-square Neptune. We're getting watered down. We're getting confused. Maybe we're not getting confused, but someone is. People are perhaps applying energy with great enthusiasm, but maybe they're applying energy in the wrong areas. And so, they're chasing things that can't possibly happen. And we might find that if we're too energetic in midweek, we might think we're doing something useful, but we could end up sort of chasing a complete fantasy and just waste a huge amount of energy. Also, with the Sun square Neptune, just have to remember Neptune rules sort of drugs and alcohol and whatever, that kind of thing, things that stupefy us. So we should probably be careful about taking intoxicants with Sun semi-square Neptune. They might be more powerful than expected. We might lose our concentration in a way that, could be quite catastrophic. And in general with Sun semi-square Neptune, our focus isn't going to be too good. We'll try our hardest to focus, but there's a lot of distractions. So I'm not convinced that Sun semi-square Neptune is particularly helpful. I suppose you might say we have vivid dreams. We're going to be imaginative. Sun in Aquarius, optimistic, brand new future. And we might think we've got it all sorted out. But that Neptune, the Neptune might give us a picture about the future. But is it a correct picture? Yes, I think we might be deluding ourselves. Then, as we move through the week, as we get into Friday, there's another semi-square coming up. And it is Mars semi-square Saturn. So there is Mars at 21:35 Capricorn, and it's semi-square Saturn at 6:35 Capricorn. Sorry, 6:35 Pisces. So, when you've got Mars and Saturn exactly semi-square, there could be problems. Mars, Saturn are a pair connected with, frustration. Things just aren't moving. We may feel that we're blocked. Mars Saturn is also, I'm afraid, associated with death and destruction. So there may be in certain places a sense, feeling of sort of gloom. Things are not going to work out. And although, for most of us, it's just more feeling of frustration. We might feel that we need to take plenty of exercise, and that's probably a good way for many of us to deal with Mars semi-square Saturn, provided we're not overdoing it. You don't want to give yourself a heart attack trying to escape the influence of Mars semi-square Saturn. So that frustration of Mars semi-square Saturn, it does need to be burnt off, ideally. Sort of vigorous activity, drumming, martial arts, that kind of thing is the usual kind of advice one gives with Mars Saturn. But yeah, I think that Mars semi-square Saturn probably requires quite a lot of exercise to burn things off, assuming, of course, that you're in a fit condition to take exercise. then at the end of the week, we do get Mercury sextile Neptune. There is Mercury at 2531 Capricorn, and there's Neptune. That's on February the 2nd. So Mercury is pretty much at the same time as the Mars Saturn semi-square. I think that would be Friday. We have got Mercury sextile Neptune. Mercury sextile Neptune is quite sensitive. Mercury is about communication. It's about the mind. It's what we pick up from the world around us. And so if it's with Neptune, and it's a sextile, sextiles are fortunate aspects. It can be about being maybe quite telepathic, quite sensitive. We can pick up all the information going on around us, and we can start to filter it, to make sense of it. We can start decoding it. So if you are a psychic, a professional psychic, I think that Mercury sextile Neptune is going to be great. Because Mercury sextile Neptune, can be about deception. If we want to deceive someone, with Mercury sextile Neptune, our words can be very effective, but I'm not suggesting you misuse the energies of Mercury sextile Neptune. It's just that we're able to sort of communicate in a way that is very targeted, but is very diffuse. It's sort of under the surface. People trust us, but we can be deceptive, and of course it works both ways. Some people are very smooth talkers with Mercury sextile Neptune, and they can persuade us to think almost anything. And that's it. And then, we should remember also that Mercury is moving through the last degrees of Capricorn, and right at the beginning of next week, on sort of Monday the 5th, Mercury will move into Aquarius. In fact, I think right at the end of the week, if you're in the Americas, you will see Mercury does move into Aquarius. But anyway, that's for next week, really. Mercury moving into Aquarius. So I'm not going to talk about it now. So that's the overall planetary picture. I don't think it's necessarily very dramatic. Mars trine Uranus. It's not like Mars square Uranus. Yeah, sure, it may be easy to cause chaos and disruption with Mars trine Uranus. That's true. But the Sun semi-square Neptune, Sun Venus, so Mars semi-square Saturn. That's it. I mean, there are no big major things going on. I mean, it's not to say nothing is going to happen, but that's the broad picture. So what I want to do now is I just want to look at a few famous people and who I think might be influenced by the events going on this week, and I'm especially focusing on that Mars semi-square Saturn, and to a lesser extent on the Sun semi-square Neptune. So someone who has recently been in the news is the former president of Harvard, Claudine Gay. There's Claudine Gay's horoscope. So you can see that she has Mercury at 6:30 Virgo. I think for her that Mercury in Virgo is really important. Mercury in Virgo is an effective organizer. It's someone who's actually quite focused on the details. I mean, I know that Claudine Gay is a Leo. I mean, I think August 4th, 1970 was her birth date. But she's got a lot of planets in Virgo. And, that Mercury is what we're really focusing on. So if we compare her chart with the Mars-Saturn semi-square, we can see that there is her Mercury, because we don't know exactly where her Mercury is because we don't have a time of birth, but it will be probably somewhere around 6 degrees Virgo. You can see that you can see that Saturn is at 6:35 Pisces, and Mars is at 21:35 Capricorn. So this week Saturn is opposition her Mercury, and she's got Mars sesquiquadrate her Mercury. So Mars is acting as a trigger, but she's got these two malefic planets. Saturn is a major but these two malefic planets. Yes, get that straight. Saturn is the greater malefic. Mars is the lesser malefic. So Mars is opposition her Mercury. Saturn is opposition her Mercury. Mars is sesquiquadrate her Mercury, 135 degrees. So that could be difficult for her, and she may be hitting the news again. I don't know. I know she's had these issues with plagiarism, these allegations that she plagiarized, and maybe there could be the allegations could be repeated, or some activity connected with these allegations. That is possible. Of course, we might not hear about it. But I think it might bother her. There's a lot to bother her this week with Saturn opposition Mercury. It doesn't look like being a great week for her. Okay, so another woman who may have Saturn problems is J.K. Rowling. We know with J.K. Rowling she's had all sorts of problems of being threatened, harassed, online attacks against her because of her views on the trans issue, which I'm not really going to go into. But and you can see that she's got Venus at 7:31 Virgo. In fact, you can see it's interesting that J.K. Rowling has got a lot of planets in Virgo: Mercury, Venus, Moon. If you want to be an effective writer, it probably helps. It does help to have a lot of Virgo. Virgo is able to be quite disciplined about its writing. Writing is not just about being inspired. It's about having to do the work, and I think all those Virgo planets must really help. But you could say those Virgo planets are in her 7th house, and the 7th house can be connected with open enemies. And so the problem for J.K. Rowling would be that there is her Venus 7:31 Virgo, and so Saturn is moving towards the opposition of Venus. In fact, I don't think that opposition is going to actually hit Venus this week. It's more like next week. But we've still got Mars on. That would probably, I think, be on Friday. Friday, Saturday, towards the end of the week, would be Mars would be making a sesquiquadrate to her Venus. So I think that Venus is under pressure. So it may be she has to deal with her critics, these people trying to close her down, and that it may get her down. And I mean, I know that she comes over as being pretty feisty and fighting back. And not just she's not just sort of apologizing and disappearing. She's been quite clear about her beliefs, but it may be getting her down a bit, and so that's something to consider. But again, like with Claudine Gay, yes, just because J.K. Rowling has Saturn opposition her Venus, doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to hear anything about it. So who else? Well, there's Putin. Vladimir Putin. Here's Vladimir Putin's chart. He's born on October the 7th, 1952. I don't know what time he's born. I mean, I know there are times that have been, published for Vladimir Putin, but as far as I'm concerned, they're not verified. So I'm just going for noon. So we've got Vladimir Putin's got a Mars at 2636 Sagittarius, and so that Mars. There's his Mars at 26 Sagittarius. We can see that Neptune is moving towards the square of his Mars. Now that is going to take a bit of time to be exact, but it gets triggered. It gets triggered by the Sun. You see, there's the Sun at 10:45 Aquarius. So the Sun, sort of in the middle of a week, is semisquare his Mars. So that Sun is kind of triggering the Neptune transit. So there may be times where he perhaps doesn't assert himself as effectively as he should be. I mean, he is head of state of Russia. While it's true that Russia is winning its war, nonetheless there are going to be the occasional setbacks, and so maybe with that Mars Sun semisquare Mars this week, there may be something that sort of bothers him or bothers his country, because that's Mars is the armed forces, the military. So there may be something he needs to deal with, or he may be tempted to do something without properly thinking it through. I mean, I know he's quite a careful operator. He's not someone who takes risks, but perhaps towards the end of the week he may be tempted to do something which isn't particularly wise. So he would perhaps be advised to be careful, to think it through. So there's something going on with Vladimir Putin. So remember, Vladimir Putin was born October the 7th, 1952. Imran Khan, the former Pakistani Prime Minister, is born on October the 5th, 1952. So if I've got that right, he was born 2 days before Vladimir Putin. Now, I should make it clear when I'm talking about Imran Khan and saying he's born close to Vladimir Putin, I'm not using that in a sort of a derogatory sense. I mean, I know in the West there's an obsession with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is seen as his hate figure, so any comparison with Vladimir Putin would supposedly be negative. I don't know. I mean, from what I understand, Vladimir Putin is got presidential election. He's riding high in the polls. The war isn't going too badly. I think his approval ratings are good. I mean, I don't think comparing someone with Vladimir Putin should necessarily be something derogatory. And anyway, even whatever you think of Vladimir Putin, being born 2 days off from Vladimir Putin, you're not really the same person, are you? Plus, we don't have times of birth for Imran Khan or Vladimir Putin. So Imran Khan has his Mars at 25.9 Sagittarius. So he has got, like Putin, he's got Neptune square his Mars. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with him. I mean, I know he was Prime Minister. He was basically got deposed. I think it was a sort of US-backed sort of plot. Uh, the US had their contact. The US didn't like the fact that Imran Khan was actually working with, or was trying to be neutral in the clash between Russia and Ukraine, or should I say Russia and the US, with Ukraine as the proxy. That wasn't good enough for the Americans, and because of Imran Khan's attempt to be neutral, he was thrown out as prime minister. So he has to be careful with this week. He mustn't be tempted to do anything or organise anything to. There's plenty of sort of temptation. Is he in prison now? I'm not sure, but still, he should just be careful and not be tempted to do anything careless with the Sun semi-squaring his Mars, and therefore triggering the Neptune square his Mars. Finally, I want to look at the horoscope of Nigel Farage. So here is Nigel Farage's horoscope. He was born on April the 3rd, 1964, I think at 4:30 p.m. So there are a couple of things going on in his chart, which we need to look at. So I think he has had. There's his midheaven. 5:38 Gemini, and there is transiting Saturn. So it's transiting Saturn is at 6:35 Pisces this week, or in the middle of the week, and so he has just had Saturn square his midheaven. Now, his birth time 4:30 p.m. That's a very round number. Maybe he was born at 4:35. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't. One doesn't really know for sure. I always thought I was born at 3:30 in the morning, and I was sure I did my chart for 3:30 in the morning, and then I found out when I finally got this paperwork just after my mother died. I got a little tag from the hospital. I got these bits of paper that my mother had, and there was a little tag which was from when I was born, and it said not 3:30, it said 3:35. So I had to kind of change my whole way of looking at myself. I was actually born 5 minutes later. And so we don't know for sure when Nigel Farage was born. He could indeed have been born at 4:35 or 4:25. So this midheaven, it may not be, it may be 6, 7 Gemini. We don't know. So we can't say, for sure, that Saturn is just passing the square of his midheaven. Really, at the moment, he's got Saturn square his midheaven. So this is a time for him where on one hand he's got to deal with work matters, midheaven, or in politics, which is that his work? I'm not quite sure. So with Saturn square his midheaven, he's probably feeling pretty conflicted. Plus, Saturn is quite close to his descendant, so his enemies at the moment, with Saturn moving towards his descendant, they're crawling out of the woodwork. People are trying to get him down, left, right, and centre. But Saturn is not just square his midheaven; it's opposition his Uranus. So in fact, this week it's pretty much exactly opposition his Uranus. His Uranus is at 6:35 Virgo, so he's got Saturn opposition his Uranus this week, and he's got Saturn square his midheaven. And he is someone who has Uranus rising, square the midheaven. He shakes things up. That's what he does, and no doubt he's done that in the UK. Whether you hate him or love him, that's something he's able to do. And he has got this Uranus. You can see he's got a Uranus-Pluto conjunction. That was one of the big events in the mid-60s, Uranus-Pluto conjunction on his ascendant. And so that enables him to have the influence and impact he does have. And it's square the midheaven. But Saturn is hitting that. So in one sense, yes, his enemies are strong. He is being challenged in quite a major way. And this week, Mars is at sort of 21 Capricorn here. So Mars is sesquiquadrate his Uranus. So Mars is acting as a trigger to Saturn is kind of the explosive, and Mars is the trigger. So that is triggering that whole effect of having having Saturn opposition his Uranus and square his Sun. So it's possibly quite a difficult time for him, quite a tense time for him. And I suppose it's a kind of tension that needs a resolution. And I'm thinking he's trying to make a decision here, and he's under a lot of pressure to make a decision one way or the other. And in terms of midpoints, you can see that Mars is actually on his Uranus midheaven midpoint. And indeed, Saturn is on his Uranus midheaven midpoint. So, the Uranus midheaven is about the whole way in which we dramatically make an impact on the world around us. We have to show the world who we are, but in a way that is quite disconcerting. And so he has that in his, he's got his Uranus in his midheaven, and so when Saturn and Mars hit the Uranus midheaven midpoint, he can't help himself. He has to be seen, and he has to be heard, and he has to have an impact. That's kind of inevitable. Is it going to be fortunate? Well, I should actually see what our friend Vita says about the Uranus midheaven, about Uranus in the midheaven. So he has all these lists. So he could midheaven Uranus. So Vita describes the general principle of Uranus midheaven Uranus as being to have a mind to do something, tenseness, to be excited. So this is what is being activated. And so with Saturn on the Uranus midheaven midpoint, Vita says to rid oneself of something, throwing things out, to be quarrelsome, irritation through losses, separation and opposing resistance. So yeah, he's under pressure. And when we put Mars on the midheaven Uranus midpoint, Vita says a spontaneous decision to beat about oneself, sudden physical attacks on others, high strung and expressing stress physically. So that's what's going on there. And I suppose he may feel that he has to make some kind of announcement. Perhaps he has to do something to put himself fairly and squarely in the public eye. I mean, that's what I think is going to be happening. Farage also has his moon at 26 Sagittarius, so he has got Neptune. Neptune is square his moon, and the Sun is semisquare his moon. The moon may be the public. and Farage has in the past been quite good at tapping into the public's opinions, or at least a segment of the public's opinions. And so perhaps Farage has to be a bit careful in terms of what he says. He mustn't make assumptions about what the public really think. In the past he might have been good at working out what a large minority of the public think, but he mustn't make an assumption that he's got it right this time round. Things have changed. He might get a bit confused. Moon in Sagittarius. Farage with Moon in Sagittarius, he does say what he thinks. Moon in Sagittarius is pretty blunt, pretty tactless, doesn't care who he offends. And so with Neptune square coming up to the square of Moon in Sagittarius. Now I must emphasize the actual square doesn't happen this week, but the reason it appears to happen this week is because Mars triggers it. So sorry, not Mars, the Sun. The Sun, there's the Sun. You see at 11 Aquarius, the Sun will be semi-square his Moon, and so that will be triggering the Neptune effect. So this week he has to be careful what he says. Yes, he might feel he needs to say something, announce something, but he needs to think carefully about what the British public really want, because he might have got something wrong there. So that's maybe what's going on with Nigel Farage this week. It looks quite a tense week, and he may feel he has to do something, maybe really pushed towards wanting to do something. And I just wanted to, what did I want to do? I wanted to look at his Vedic horoscope. I've looked at his Vedic horoscope before, just to give us an idea of, where Farage is going at the moment, just to put it in a broader context. So in a broader context, there is Nigel Farage's Vedic chart. Nigel Farage has been in a phase of his life since 2012, which is ruled by Rahu, the north node of the dragon. And that phase lasts from 2012 through to 2030. So this Rahu period has got, it's got another 6 years to run. Is that right? 5 years. Yeah, 6 years to run. Now, since 2012, by and large, Farage has actually been quite successful, whatever you think of him. Certainly in terms of getting people elected to the European Parliament, in terms of forcing the Tories to have a vote on Brexit, winning the vote on Brexit, being a very influential political figure. So overall, this Rahu period he's been in since 2012 has been successful. And he has been certainly disruptive during that period. And it's not surprising, because his Rahu that is in the 11th house in Gemini. Rahu is a malefic, and the 11th house is, I think it's described as an upachaya house, which means it's a growth house. And malefics work quite well in the 11th house. So that's one point. Also, Rahu's in Gemini. Rahu is, I think it's exalted in Gemini. So it works well here. And so, and I think that has been reflected in terms of what has been going on since 2012. And this period where he's by and large been successful does continue till 2030, which is why I'm saying you should not write off Nigel Farage. I believe he still has a major impact to play, and in terms of British politics, and particularly now, perhaps when the Tory party, when the Conservative Party is, from what I can see, falling apart. Of course, people always say with political parties, this is it, falling apart, they'll never recover. The main parties, the Tories and Labour, they always do recover. Maybe this time is different, in terms of his sub-periods. Now, if you look at his sub-periods from February 2023 through to February the 25th, 2024, he's been in the major period of Rahu and in the minor period of Ketu. So north node of the dragon, major period, south node of the dragon, minor period. So that's this period in the middle of his Rahu Dasha, which is incredibly disruptive. And I think maybe that's he's just been in turmoil. He doesn't. I mean, I think right now he probably doesn't quite know what he wants, and he's done all this stuff like what was it that going into the Australian jungle, was it I'm a celebrity, get me out of here or something, or whatever it was. There's been turmoil. He had all this stuff with his bank accounts, with his bank account being closed, and him having this really public fight with the banks. And so this might be all this, all this instability of North Node and South Node coming together. But February 25th, 2024, which is in about a month's time, he's in his Rahu major period, and he moves into his Venus sub period. Now his Venus is in Taurus. In fact, his Venus is in Taurus in the Western zodiac and in the Western zodiac and in the Eastern zodiac. So he certainly has Venus in Taurus. Venus obviously works well in Taurus. I mean, Venus is in its own sign in Taurus, and in Farage's chart, Venus is in the 10th house. So he's moving into the sub period, which lasts from February 2024 to February 2027, with a really quite strong Venus. Looking at you from a perspective of Shad Bala, sixfold strength, if you give numerical strengths to the different planets, Venus is actually his second most powerful planet. His most powerful planet is Saturn, and he's got Saturn in the 11th house, in his 7th house, in the 11th. Sorry, not the 11th house, in Aquarius. He's got Saturn in Aquarius, in the 7th house. That's actually quite strong, because Saturn in the 7th house in the Vedic astrology is called has directional strength. And Dikbala, people with Saturn in the 7th are hard to defeat, hard to beat. I mean, look at Nicola Sturgeon. She had Saturn in the 7th. I mean, I know in the end she was her political career blew up, but she lasted a long time. It was very difficult to get rid of her. And even though I believe her Saturn was in Aries in the 7th house, which means it was fallen in the 7th house. Even though it was fallen, it was in the 7th house, and that gave it enormous strength. But Nigel Farage he's got his Saturn its own sign in the 7th house, so he really is a hard person to defeat. But I'm thinking that within a month's time, I think that Nigel Farage will be in a position where he's able to really find his groove again. We mustn't write off Nigel Farage. I think he's still got a big role to play. So it doesn't matter whether you like him or hate him. It's just the way it is. That's Nigel Farage. Just a few thoughts there. Okay, so that's it with astrology for in terms of this week. And what I want to do now is focus on the I Ching. So just remember, as I always say during this part of the video, if you don't want to have your I Ching done, if you don't want to know about your week ahead with I Ching, then you can just stop watching this video. I'm not talking about anything else. You can watch something else, because if you don't listen to what I'm saying, about the I Ching, then you're simply not part of the forecast. Because having your I Ching done it's a voluntary thing. You make a conscious decision but you want it done. If you don't want it done, you don't have to listen to me. And I won't be offended if you just switch the video off. Okay, so assuming you want your I Ching done, so what I did was I asked the question, what is the weekend going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And I'm going to be looking at this I Ching from four different perspectives: general reading, generally looking at it in general, looking at it from the point of view of money, then career and business, and finally relationships. So I threw the coins, 3 coins, 6 times, and the first hexagram I got was hexagram 43, which is breakthrough. I'm not sure if that is a particularly appropriate way of describing it. It sounds perhaps a little too positive. What the I Ching means when it says breakthrough is it's that something has to give. Something has to be announced. We have to be clear and honest about something. We can't just continue to sit on the fence, to exist where we are, to just manage the situation we're in. We actually have to do something about it, and we have to be very decisive, and it's not about worrying about whether we offend people. We have to be clear. Now, there is a view that this hexagram is not just about a breakthrough, it's about an escape. It may be that we are in a situation which is not good, and we have ample warning. I mean, that's the positive thing. We've had ample warning that this situation is no good, and we have an escape route. So if we're not happy with a situation, we can leave. We don't have to continue to involve ourselves with it. So think about it. What are you involved with? What are you involved with? Something that bothers you, that you've become obsessed about, that just keeps piling up. Things are just piling up on each other, on themselves, and it's just getting out of hand. What do you do? Because it may be that if you carry on like this, the situation is just not going to get any better. And so we can escape. And we do have a moving line here. The 5th line moves. And with the 5th line moving, one view about that is that, we're having to deal with people who are just not on our level. And we don't quite know how to deal with these people, and at some stage we just have to just make the break. So that's one possibility. It's people who really are just not worth bothering with, but we have to deal with them nonetheless, and it's all a bit of a pain. Another view is it's simply the escape. It's about seeing a clear road ahead, and we can just get out. And we can actually get out at great speed. And it's like, I don't know, what's it, Star Wars, when you go into warp drive or whatever, when you see this sudden, when you're about to be when a spaceship's about to be destroyed, but you just go into warp drive just in time, and then you're somewhere else, and you've actually gone light years further than you'd expected. It's something, it's something like that, and then you think, oh wow, that was a bit, that escape might have been a bit too excessive. But the main thing is that you've escaped. And this hexagram 43, it does move. It moves to hexagram number 34, which is the power of the great. And I think we see a continuation here. We've got out of a bad situation, and we actually realize how much energy we've got. It's very energized. We've got all this energy, and we just think that there's no limit to what we can do. And we're just in a hurry for results. But we just might have not. Yeah, we've got a lot of energy, and we're very enthusiastic, but we might not have what it takes to see it through to a successful completion, at least not in the first instance. It's just the beginning. Yes, we've got a lot going for us, but have we got what it takes to see things through to an absolute to a satisfactory conclusion? Probably not. At least not this week. But then we've got to be patient. We've got to start to take our energy and start to sort of focus it in a sort of a constructive way. So that's the general picture with the I Ching. So I'm now going to turn to money. So what would this mean, this hexagram, for our finances? I think I would say that if you look at your finances and what you're planning on doing and what you're committing yourself to, perhaps you've made commitments, perhaps you've made unwise commitments, and it may be starting to occur to you that you are overcommitted. But if you were to do everything you had promised to do, you could be in trouble. And of course, if you've made a promise, if you've made a commitment to something, you don't want to back out, do you? I mean, that's not nice. But really, it's a time when you need to be honest about your reservations, about your financial reservations. Whatever it is. Okay, maybe you need to be honest about your reservations about someone else's finances. Maybe there's someone who is not being sensible with money, not being sensible with their resources. In which case, you have to make that clear. But fundamentally, what this hexagram is doing is it's giving you permission. It's giving you permission to back out. So if you are starting to get involved in something financially and you're not comfortable with it, and you're on the verge of making an irreversible commitment, you're able to save yourself just in time. And so it's actually okay to say, no, it's okay. You don't have to go through with it. Now, by the way, I'm not giving financial advice. This is, of course, purely for entertainment. But I'm just saying that if you feel you're being pressurized to do something of a financial nature, then you must not feel committed, and it is okay to say no, you don't want to go through with it. So the I Ching, in that sense, is giving you permission to do that, and then you can escape from a dangerous position, and that moves to hexagram 34, the power of the great. And I think that might be a feeling that you actually do have financial power. Whatever your financial resources, even if they're quite small, you're able to sort of leverage those, I don't mean literally leverage. Literally leverage can be very dangerous, but you can use your financial position to move forward. Okay, but not. You have to be careful. This is not a time. You've got big ideas. Well, there is some danger. Okay, you've got big ideas about money, and those ideas might, in a sense, have a germ of truth. You may be right to have big ideas, but you must not be in a hurry. You may feel that you've escaped one bad situation, but if you're in a hurry, you might just move straight into another bad position. You give yourself time to sort of review things. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry to spend your money. Don't be necessarily in a hurry to put your money into any particular project. And maybe what this is about is the power of a great is saying that you may now be in a position to start doing things which can actually make you extra money. Now, that money is not going to be coming in straight away because you haven't really, because the way you're using your energy at the moment is still a bit too raw. You can't quite connect with whatever you need to connect with to make the money, but you're certainly moving in the right direction. So now we move to career and business. Not surprisingly, it's quite a similar picture. So hexagram 43, I think that the situation at work, if you are working, is certainly not ideal. You can feel that something is wrong, and you can feel that it's not going to get any better. And now it may be a situation where you have to be honest about it. You have to tell someone. And of course, I understand that does involve some risk, because no one, well, not no one, but honesty. People often, people don't appreciate honesty very often. But it is a time when you do have to be clear, because if you're not clear, if you don't say what's wrong, nothing is going to change. It's just going to get worse. And it is better. I don't know, it's almost better to be fired than to have to persist with a dreadful situation. Now, if you are running your own business, it's perhaps a slightly different position, particularly if you've got employees. It's possible that your employees are not up to it, are not really giving their best, and they may be dragging things down, or maybe not just employees, but anyone you're contracting out, anyone you're paying money to do a service. The job may not be being done well, and you have to say. You absolutely have to be honest, because if you don't say anything, then things aren't going to improve, and it's quite possibly a situation where you have to cut your losses or run. So if you're starting to get involved perhaps in a contract, or you're having negotiations with someone and you just feel that they are not pulling their weight, you just get a bad feeling. It's okay to just say no. You don't want to bother. If you're about to hire someone, you don't have to hire them. And if you're in a job that feels wrong for you, or you're about to get into a job that feels wrong for you, it's okay to back away. You may literally be not literally, but you may be dodging a bullet by not getting involved in something, and so it really might be might be time to escape. And so that the fifth line moves, and it moves to 34, the power of the great. And so in terms of your work, career, whatever, by the end of a week, I do think you're going to feel you have a lot of power. I think you're going to be quite pleased with yourself for managing to escape. And then the question is, now what? You almost feel ready to make some new commitments, make some decisions. You're feeling quite good about that, but maybe not. Maybe that's not quite the right way to go about it. Because yes, you feel powerful, you feel able to make sense of career and business matters. Yes, but if you actually get involved with the nitty-gritty, you may just run out of steam. Perhaps you just overcommit. And so I think it's just important that you don't overdo it. Yes, you're in a strong position, but you're not in a position that's so strong that you can do whatever you want. So I think it's probably important that you exercise a bit of patience and restraint. And finally, I want to talk about relationships. Well, the first thing to say is that if you are in a new relationship, and this is not just about a romantic relationship, whatever, partnership, friendship, whatever it is, some whatever that one-to-one situation is. If you're just getting involved in a one-to-one relationship and you feel that something's wrong and you feel that it's just not working out, then it's not about hurting other people's feelings. I mean, all's fair in love and war, isn't it? I mean, so if you want to finish it, get out, that's fine. There's no commitment here. I mean, you shouldn't feel any sense of commitment. You shouldn't feel any sense of guilt. In fact, in many cases, that is the right thing to do, because you have a chance to terminate a relationship that is, if it's you're in a relationship, it's not going well, you have a chance to terminate it. If you don't terminate it now, then you might lose your chance. The sort of baggage might build up, the ties of commitment might build up. So if a relationship isn't working, now is probably the time to end it. Don't want to leave it any longer. Now, if you are in an existing relationship, a relationship that has, perhaps has been going on for a long time, years, decades, whatever, not the kind of relationship that you're going to want to terminate. Remember, this I Ching reading is for 1 week. Then you may feel that your partner is not being reasonable, has been treating you unfairly, has been just obsessed about themselves, whatever complaints you've got. In which case, now is the time to tell them what's wrong, tell them what's bothering you. Because breakthrough is about announcing it in a very clear way. You tell someone what is wrong. You tell them what's bothering you. And, if you tell them now, they're going to listen, I think. I mean, don't blame me if they don't listen and something terrible happens. Remember, this is just for entertainment, this reading. It's your entertainment purposes only. But that aside, I think that now is the time to talk about your grievances. I think you're going to be listened to. And I think the other person will probably say, oh, they didn't know, they hadn't realized, and they will change their behavior. Well, does anyone ever change their behavior? I mean, people don't change, I think, but you know what I mean. I think certain things can be reformed here, and I think that's that's something to be welcome. So I think in a long-standing relationship, through your honesty, can certainly be improved. And I think your honesty might actually strengthen the relationship. And you shouldn't worry too much about hurting another person's feelings. And so this hexagram 43 breakthrough, it does move. It does move to hexagram 34, which is the power of a great. And I think this is just you feeling, I think, a certain sense of relief. Once you've got everything out into the open, maybe you've got rid of a relationship, maybe you've been able to change a relationship, you start to feel a new sense of your own power. That maybe you can control people, but perhaps you can find the right relationship depending on the circumstances. To an extent, you're right, but you do need to be patient. It's and certainly if you've just got rid of one relationship, you certainly don't want to just rush into another relationship straight away, because even whatever the temptations, that's probably not the right thing to do. Don't overestimate yourself, but you need to just perhaps be grateful that you've able to make some change in the way you relate to someone, and you've given yourself more freedom, and I think you've also given yourself more self-respect. So that's it for this week. I don't think it's. I don't think it's particularly dramatic. I don't think it's quite as dramatic as it sounds, because the I Ching is always giving you a way out. But I do think that from an I Ching's perspective, just consider the possibility that you're being offered a path of escape, whatever the situation, not just relationships, career, money, whatever you're involved in. This perhaps just something you're involved in isn't working out, and you get a chance to escape, and it's a clear chance to escape, and you'll be able to escape just in time. So that's all I'm going to say on I Ching, and I will be talking about the week following, the week starting on Monday, February the 5th, in a week's time, and I'll be making a video about that. So thank you for listening. I hope you found that account of this week of some use. If you did find it useful, then I'd be grateful if you like this video, or if you're not subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. So thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again very soon.